Greetings and welcome to Pod 366, a weird movie podcast. Our guest this week is Ali Aksu of Untold Capital, and we'll be getting to a conversation with him. But first, we're going to crash through a few of the new movie and release updates for this week. Ali, hello, and do feel free to chime in as you may wish. And Greg, I believe you have some slides to prepare for.
That is correct. Let me get the new release slides up. Share screen. I am letting Giles handle most of the duties today because I am currently recovering from COVID. Doing pretty well, but I can't promise I'm not going to just break out coughing at some point. So I'll join in, but I'm going to let Giles do most of the talking.
Oh boy.
If you're ready, Giles.
Oh, sure. Outwaters is coming out. I had the pleasure, I guess I'll say, of watching the trailer for that earlier this morning. It looks to be a found footage kind of horror story set in what looks like a wandering desert kind of thing. As for further specifics about it, I opted not to explore beyond what they wanted to tell me in the trailer, so I obviously got flashbacks of Blair Witch. It's something of a tried and true found footage technique, and I guess it's not impossible that they'll pull it off. Seems to be a lot of buzz from a number of horror-focused movie review places, so this could be as menacing as the fellow's face in the poster here suggests.
Getting a lot of good reviews.
I had a lot of fine superlatives flash on the screen. So this has obviously been shown to a number of people who are in the field of watching horror films, and it's considering the format, it may be of interest to us eventually, or might be more for the standard horror genre community.
Okay. So we're going to rush through these, I think. So if Ali has nothing to say about this, we'll go to the next one.
This movie, it looks interesting. Actually, the fan footage looks really, it sounds intriguing. I would love to see it.
It does actually give me a question. So you're a producer, correct?
Yeah, I write and direct as well.
So if somebody comes to you with just that brief an outline, it's a found footage horror in the Mojave Desert, what else do you want to know before you decide whether you'd want to be involved in it?
If they have made any movies in the past, if they sold them, and if they are able to basically put it on the screen.
Okay.
As long as they can do that, we can be involved.
All sorts of pragmatic questions. Yes. Okay. Next one. Giles.
This is Bubba Hotep is now available 4K Ultra HD from the good people at Scream Factory. So regular readers of our site are almost certainly familiar with this piece. Comes with the requisite number of re-releasey and Shout Factory standard extras. Specifics can be found on a link that I'm sure we'll be providing for you on the website, so no need to go too deeply into that. I believe this has been released a number of times, but now it's going to look really nice.
Yep, and we've talked before about how nobody has 4K Ultra yet that we know. But at one point, nobody had Blu-ray, so.
That's true.
Do you have a 4K player by any chance, Ali?
Yeah, I think this guy is good at that.
Oh. So we do finally know somebody who has one. Okay, that's that. I think people will be interested in that for sure. Oops. Let me get rid of that one. There we go. That's Nina Menkes' cinematic Sorceress.
Yes, this is a collection of short films. It seems Nina Menkes
actually features.
Oh, they are features. Okay.
Yeah.
All of them. Okay. Pardon my error there. Nina Menkes, I looked a little in her background. We're looking at a filmmaker with an MFA from University of California, one who received a Guggenheim Fellowship in '92 and was artist in residence in Berlin in '93. So obviously an individual with talent, vision, and the kind of ambition to pursue artistic storytelling in this way. When I chatted with you last night, Greg, you mentioned Tarkovsky and Lynch influences and motifs, and even just the stills from some of her films that we're looking at now. There's definitely a suggestion of a combination of surreal or absurd mixed with some mundane, such as, yes, horse through traffic accidents and all that. So these might be more of interest to those who are leaning toward art house, but definitely a curiosity worth investigating for weird movie fans.
The reason this is probably being released is she has a documentary out right now about the male gaze, whose name I forget. That's actually getting some, probably more attention than anything she's ever done in her career. So it seemed, I guess, an appropriate time to re-release her her movies. I've heard her name. I have not seen any of the movies, know nothing about them. If you're listening to this without video, you can't see it. But if you look at the stills, one of these stills has a very clear quote from Tarkovsky's Mirror in it.
Are we talking the flaming palm tree?
No, the floating woman.
No, that would be nostalgia, flaming palm tree.
Oh, wait, yeah, no, yeah. The floating woman is Mirror, yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
any more comments?
Interesting for sure.
This one.
Pinocchio 964, an odd little film from 1991, which we actually reviewed some years ago. And I refreshed my memory with that review earlier this morning. A very intense sounding, visceral, troubling picture with, it seems, quite a bit of vomiting going on, as well as other eccentric excesses, I guess I'll describe them as. It's the story of a sex slave, probably human, possibly not kind of entity, running into an amnesiac who kind of takes him in, and then things get even a bit weirder and more unsettling. So this will now be shiny, crisp Blu-ray. The director hasn't made a film, I think, since it was either '09 and maybe a short a little later. So I wouldn't be surprised if this were of particular interest for a visceral, thrill-seeking type.
Yeah, it's an interesting sounding movie. I never got around to seeing it, but the one thing I would say is I looked at it yesterday and it was listed as out of stock everywhere I've seen, even though it supposedly only came out on Tuesday.
Huh.
I don't know if that means it's a very small run and they sold out of everything already, or whether there's an error with it, with the disc, and it's going to be pushed back.
Might be a marketing technique.
Yeah.
Happens sometimes with these. It's from Media Blasters, who's generally been a pretty reliable company, but every now and then even reliable companies run into snags releasing physical media. Next one.
This is Irreversible, the Straight Cut, Gaspar Noé, an earlier film of his. I guess not necessarily the one that made him famous, but Irreversible somehow made him super famous, which apparently surprised him at the time. I read a rather comprehensive interview with Noé that can be found on IndieWire, explaining why this is happening. It's basically Irreversible is structured in non-chronological order. The straight cut has been restructured to tell the narrative in a time forward fashion. And the idea to do this came when either Gaspar Noé or one of the people involved with production with him were sent an anonymous bootleg forward cut of the film, and he didn't think that was done well, but the notion intrigued him, and he remarks that as a general rule he doesn't like watching his movies because he's constantly thinking of different ways to do things, but whereas for this he quite liked the fact that yes, he could go back and basically rejumble the whole thing as a more hands-on experience for himself. So he seemed to be pretty pleased that he, I guess, maybe had an excuse to do this. And so now this is going to be available for those who, as Gaspar Noé describes the narrative in the straight cut here, more simple and more cruel, as opposed to perhaps the oblique angle that he took when first telling the story in the more fractured order that he did originally.
Yeah, this is a theatrical re-release right now that's just in a few of your repertory theaters, starting out probably in New York and Los Angeles. And we'll have a list or a link you can go to see where it's playing. And I assume they'll come out with it on disc after. Since I haven't seen Irreversible, I'm not gonna comment except to say this seems like a gimmick.
Well, some gimmicks can be worth exploring. I haven't seen Irreversible either, so.
Okay. All right, let's move on then.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that friendly character actually just about an hour and a half ago. This is a still from the YouTube sensation titled Backrooms. That's one of the, or perhaps the only entity that in another found footage short, I believe it was almost exclusively created by one 16-year-old at the time, that starts with the premise that they're shooting a obviously low budget filmed on camera horror thing, and then for the wide angle the cameraman's asked to step back and falls into this space that just has these never-ending rooms and corridors, and very much in the vein of the Amnesia game franchise, with sort of subtle nods of scares and little glimpses of things. This is the actual duration of a clip, the clip that we have the still here for, which features a sort of, I don't know, robotic alien thin kind of thing, is no more than half a second before the storyteller behind the camera books it down another corridor. So I definitely found Backrooms, the short, very creepy. It's a very masterfully edited piece that creates a sense of space, but totally ununderstood space. And and I believe the reason we're bringing your attention to this is, Greg, you mentioned this is going to be picked up for a feature length production.
It is. It's going to be picked up for by James Wan, is producing for A24. And pause for a moment. We lost Ali there for a moment. Now he's coming back. Yes, there he is. He's back. Okay, yeah.
My internet is choppy these days. I don't know what's in New York.
Yeah, it's being produced by A24 and James Wan, and it's a 17-year-old director, and that seems like I don't know if it's a big gamble or what, but Ali, this one seems to be up your alley since it's based on a viral YouTube, and don't you have some experience with viral YouTubes turned into features?
Yeah, I actually made my first feature with a group of YouTubers.
So do you think this has promise, or
Yeah, definitely. I think it can get picked up if they have a good amount of following. It looks interesting.
The idea of the director only being 17 and getting, I don't know, such big, big backing is a little worrisome. Although I think Harmony Korine probably made his first movie when he was not much older than that.
Yeah, I was 19 as well.
You were
Oh,
19
wow.
when you produced your first movie, or
Yeah, Universal picked it up.
yeah,
Well,
right. That covers our new releases. So we are now, you can see, if you're on YouTube, you can see Leslie's name there. She's not on the call, but she's listening in. So don't be distracted by that. So we are done with the new releases, Giles. Begin talking to Ali, who has a dog.
hello, Ali, and hello to your dog
She
there.
cries when I don't pick her up, so I have to.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I have a cat that occasionally wanders here.
Yeah.
Ali Aksu, wondering if maybe we want to kick this off. If you'd like to speak a little bit about yourself and your production company that was brought to our attention through Fuzzy Head, Wendy McCollum's film.
Yeah.
And it was because of that we got in touch with Leslie and are now speaking with you. So if you wanted to say a few words to start that off, that'd be swell.
Sure. Our production company is based in LA and in New York. We focus on Christmas movies, horror movies, and romantic movies, and documentaries as well. The part that you guys saw, Untold, is one of our initiatives. It's an SEC registered funding portal for independent filmmakers that we want to work with, but who are not ready to work with us yet, and who need to raise money, who need to shoot the movie, who really need a lot of support. So we created Untold to help that pipeline in the industry because, especially after the streaming boom, the acquisition levels that we see and the speed are very different than what it used to be. And we wanted to keep up with it and say yes to more people. So we wanted to create an opportunity for independent filmmakers to raise money and get up to a certain level and hopefully get a pre-sale from us or other people that we can refer to and hopefully get it to the finish line. So Fuzzy Head was one of those. And when Wendy was shooting Fuzzy Head, we were halfway through. She was halfway through the schedule, and she needed some help. We provided some help. It was mostly production help, and she got to the finish line, and she got to premiere it in Slam Dance in Park City. So that was really fun.
How would your service differ from something like a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo?
So Kickstarter, Indiegogo are pledge and donation oriented platforms, right? So when you support a movie, you support it because you like the director, your friends and family probably, or you get a hat or a t-shirt. In our case, it's nothing different than raising private equity. And by the way, Kickstarter and Indiegogo were really great proof of concepts for us because we looked at their stats and film and TV was one of the top three always that they raised for. So that was, that gave us the green light kind of saying, okay, there is market for this. But the people who are willing to give money are willing to give money for no reason, which is really good. In our case, you buy the shares in the company and, it's like a startup, just like how Silicon Valley really operates. When you're a startup owner, you got to go out there and raise angel round and then pre-seed and seed and series A, B, C. And, for the films, it's really the same thing. And the startups and the films are the same thing. This is something that I say all the time. The product for the film industry is basically in the can. And for the startups, it could be, anything service, product, software. It's really the same structure when it comes to raising finances to make both of them happen. So for films, you know, for if you're, let's say you're still at the script level, or you want to make a movie about your life. A lot of people have obsessions about making a movie about their lives. And because we get a lot of people saying, hey, let's do this, this is what I want. Today I have maybe 14 calls, Thursdays and Fridays. And uh, you know uh, let's say that's considered the angel level, right? You need someone to give you money so that you can get the script done, and then some type of cast attached, and hire a couple maybe assistants, and get it going. And then you can do more of a, after you have a script and you start the thing, you start more of the pre-production. Maybe it's pre-seed and then seed, and as you pick up the production, you can open up new rounds and accept new investors. That's what we really offer. We let filmmakers really give their supporters a share from the revenue, and not just a hat. Nothing wrong with the hat, by the way.
Oh, and better
Yeah.
yet, if you can have a hat and a share.
Yeah, that's actually what we do. We give them a perk as well at every level. We kind of digitize them like NFTs, more like, than a physical merch, because it's, I think, more sustainable. But it's really up to the filmmaker.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I read an article you wrote last May, I believe. Middle class economy in film was the general thrust of that, and that covered a number of things that you mentioned just now. I was curious, as a film reviewer, what it was that drew you to wanting to put your talents behind bringing, as you call them, untold stories into life. Was there a particular motivation behind that, or?
Yeah, of course. I think, I believe in every company and every person having a massive transformative purpose that behind what they do, to fulfill what they, fulfill their create fulfillment for the time and resources that they spend on any effort, right? And I believe, you know, everything we do in the capitalistic society is really great to push the whole society forward, but we need to add impact, and then we need to add a passion behind everything that we do. So I think creating an environment where untold stories come to life and actually get monetized as well could be a very interesting pivot towards the whole industry, other than just making movies, just to have an exit. Because most of the time we're in the studio system, we're based in Universal, right? And then our office is in the back lot, so I see a lot of movies being made for order, and I think that's really great, and I support that fully, that pipeline. But I think at the same time, cinema and filmmaking really need, the reason that it exists is to really tell stories that we need to hear, and to amplify voices that we don't really get to see in our daily lives.
Excellent. Okay, great. So I noticed also on your LinkedIn, you did you start your career in film and then move on to investing? I couldn't quite get the chronology, because you early in the resume you have some obvious studio credits with production.
Yeah, I have. I grew up in Hollywood. I started my first job when I was 16 as an editor, and I worked as a, literally an editor and a PA after, obviously, like everybody else. Um, and then I switched to, working with the producers that I really liked, and then we made the movie when, as I was still in college. And then I switched to music industry for a while, worked with great talent, for talent management and touring. And then I came back to film industry to continue making movies, and I really liked Christmas movies, so I started specializing in them.
Very lucrative right now, right? I mean, they make a ton of them, so they've got to be
Yeah.
making money.
Christmas movies always make money. I shouldn't say this. I shouldn't say this. I mean, this is not an investment advice. I like to make them.
Yeah, I've also heard that horror movies always make money, which explains, yeah, that prevalence as well.
Correct. Lower budget, and obviously, if you, as long as you can deliver 90 minutes with quality cast and nice special effects, it should sell.
When somebody, oh, I'm sorry, Giles.
No, you, Greg, please.
I was gonna say, when somebody works with you, to produce a movie, it's not exclusive, is it? I mean, they could put up some money and they need finishing money and come to you for that? Or is it exclusive?
Well, if they're raising funds online with us, it's exclusive.
Okay.
But they can go out there and raise money offline, whatever they like. But they can't go out to a competitive platform. There's none actually in the film industry. We're the only licensed one. But if there's one in the future, they can't really, if they wanted to raise with somebody else, it has to be exclusive.
I was thinking of like the Indiegogo or Kickstarter.
I mean, I think they can. It's just, to me, I like to think of the fundraise as in, a real fundraise. So if they have an Indiegogo on the side, sure, why not? I wouldn't be opposed to it.
I guess, yeah, going back to Fuzzy Head, how did you and Wendy McCollum cross paths? You mentioned briefly that she needed some, I guess, capital to finish up her project there. How did either she come to know about you, or did you see her needing this?
We got introduced by a mutual friend. That was, it was a lot easier than that. During the pandemic, we just, we were all living in isolated spots and, hanging out all together. And, it was a group of friends that we just, happened to meet. And I said, like, I can help. Yeah.
Okay, and this your website, Untold Capital, do you have more of a soft touch approach, or do you like to get involved with, say, maybe any artistic decisions that might be required?
For the artistic decisions, we don't really, because we don't necessarily produce the movies that we have on Untold. We're not allowed to. By the SEC, we can't really be too involved and have too big of a stake. There's even a limit to the amount we can own in the movie. So, and if the reason that we created Untold is because we want to let other people's artistic expressions, we want to set them free with their artistic expression. So it's not really up to us to make a lot of comments. But if there's a rough cut and they send it to us, we can definitely say, hey, the first 2 minutes is really boring. Can you make it a little less? Or, can you take off the scene and stuff like that? Definitely. Just for distribution purposes.
Oh. And I noticed you have a Twitter presence.
We do, yeah. We like Twitter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I when I was reading up on Untold, I looked for that. And I saw that at Untold Capital was a big fan of Infinity Pool.
Yes.
Which we're big fans too. Greg watched that a week or two ago, and so I took that as a good sign about your group there.
Yeah, we saw it at Sundance. I think a couple of my friends saw it in New York City, and they told me the scenes that I mentioned were non-existent. So I think they obviously have different cuts for the general audience, which I thought would be the case.
Oh, that's interesting to hear. I suppose that's may ultimately only be solved with the 4K director's cut whenever that's released months down the road.
Yep.
That's an NC-17 problem, I guess. You gotta avoid that NC-17 rating and make, sometimes they make. That's a little disappointing. I think Cronenberg's previous movie he released unrelated, and he must have gone for the R for Infinity Pool.
I think it's R. It must be R.
Yeah.
From what I've seen.
That's a shame.
That is.
It was really fun to watch for sure.
Oh yeah, I've read 2 reviews for it. One from Greg, who really loved it, and whoever was the reviewer at the Washington Post was really bothered and annoyed, and thought Cronenberg was reveling in too many of his father's excesses. And I thought, well, that's a Cronenberg movie for you. But regardless,
I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was great.
Glad to hear it. And on your website, you have a number of big names affiliated with your project. Danny Glover, Robert De Niro, and Morgan Freeman come to mind. How did you come to cross paths with those individuals?
Danny Glover, we made a Christmas movie with, and Robert De Niro and Morgan Freeman were supporting their latest movie, The Comeback Trail, and I think it's coming out this year or early next.
Just sort of curious because I know, shoot, there's like Specter Vision is another kind of, shall we say, niche production related thing that is founded by Elijah Wood and also has the mission statement of enabling creative creations, if you'll pardon that kind of repetitive phrasing there.
That's cool.
And so I was certainly reminded of that outfit with the enthusiasm that your groups does seem to project for helping filmmakers out doing their own thing, and as you mentioned now, legally and otherwise are not able to interfere too directly with the actual creation of content.
100%. And there's a lot of missing, there's a lot of gaps in filmmakers' understanding of the business of filmmaking. So for that, we also shot a content series.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
In our footer. It's, like a lot of filmmakers would come to us and they wouldn't have an LLC, they wouldn't have a chain of title, they wouldn't have a lot of things that need to be in place, even for anyone to consider investing. I always ask them, hey, like if somebody gave you a check for 100,000 or $1 million tomorrow, where would you put it? And a lot of people say, unfortunately, 50% of the people say in my bank account. So that's, those are the gaps that we're trying to fill in the industry as well and do a lot of education. So, that we have a long way to go, I think.
Yeah, certainly judging from the thoroughness of your educational video array there, you have a lot of information to impart to people who, by inclination, probably aren't necessarily thinking about these nuts and bolts, pragmatic issues that need to be addressed.
Which is very important.
Okay.
The legal aspects of investing in movies are very complicated. So like you say, you're SEC compliant, and that must have taken a lot of work because I guess, in the early days of movies, there must have been a lot of people ripping people off with promising invest in this movie and you'll make a lot of money, and then taking the money and run. So they made a lot of onerous maybe rules about who can invest in movies and how they can invest.
Yeah, trust me, the institutional world hated movies. I think they still do partially. And we run a lot of bad actor checks, background checks on people, even on investors, not just people who raise money, just to make sure that all the activities, good intentions, and like everybody's checked before.
Oh, that's I'm certainly pleased we were able to get this perspective. I think you're the first producer angle that we've been able to talk with so far in this newish podcast series we're doing.
Nice.
So that's great.
It's been great. Well, thanks for having me, for sure.
Oh yeah, and we are getting close to end time, and I just want to make sure before we run out, there's a question that we do like to ask every
before you do.
Oh, sorry.
You could ask
Greg.
Final question. I'd like to see, do you have any movies coming out recent or in the near future that you would like to mention, plug? Anything?
There's a couple, yes. There's a couple. There's one named Alaska, I think is coming out rather soon. And there's a documentary that I'm really excited. I wrote and directed it. It's in post now. That one is the one I'm the most excited about. It was shot on the Necker Island, with a lot of great people in it, and I can't wait to put it out there. This is the first time I mentioned it somewhere.
Oh. Well, thank you for interrupting me, Greg. Despite having done this for some years now, that is a question I always forget to ask. But as for our wrap-up question here, if you would be happy to tell us, what's your hometown, and can you recommend a restaurant there?
Yes, hometown is in the town that I live now, right?
Oh, well, however you want to define it.
Well, my hometown, I'll go back. My hometown is Ankara, um,
Oh,
and in Turkey, and at least where I really spent most of my childhood. And the one that I recommend was the Salt Bay,
I believe so.
the guy who put salt in people's steaks like this. He has his first ever restaurant in my hometown, so going to that one is really nice because it's not as big as in New York or in London, but it's very small and very intimate, and I think that one is the one that I would recommend. Other than that, in New York City, I can give you a whole list of
Oh,
to go.
I'm sure. Yeah. But cool. And
That's a great.
Ankara lead. Excellent. Well, I think that just about wraps us up. Recording time tells me we have less than 2 minutes, so we're pretty on target here. So thank you very much, Ali, for taking time out of what I presume is a generally very busy schedule and giving us perspective on this background for film production here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was really fun. I had a great time with you guys.
Thank you, Ali. It's a new perspective, and I'm glad I got through without coughing, and looks good.
You feel better very soon.
Thank you.
Oh, likewise, and you too.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
All right.
This is 366 Podcast. Signing off.